Boca Raton, Florida, which means we're on the leeward side of the island. And we focus primarily on coastal and marine environments in South Florida. And then Christy, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I've been with Gumbo Limbo for the past 3 years, since the time I moved to South Florida. And the education department there, we do pretty much what all the other nature centers do for their educational programs. Just the things that I get to do now that I didn't get to do when I was in Missouri is snorkel and and go to the beach and stuff like that. So that might be a little bit, you know, a little bit of a perk there. But I just wanted to, I'll give you the, what we're going to be going over this next hour. And so the first 20 minutes, we are going to be showing our video presentation that we showed at NAI National Conference, which is actually now NAI National Office. They actually used the session, our video, for training purposes during one of their 6-week trainings here recently. And so we hope you enjoy it. And then when that is finished, we're going to take about 15 minutes or so, and we're going to do our happy hour mixology activities. So we'll go over the ingredients and just things like that. And that's going to be an activity that will tie back to the presentation that you see at the beginning. And then we're going to break up into breakout rooms, some small breakout rooms, and we're going to discuss how we can utilize and implement some of these activities at our sites to involve our visitors' senses. And then we'll come back together. So we'll be in breakout rooms for about 10 minutes. And then we'll come back together and just discuss everybody's ideas. And maybe you guys are already doing this, and we would love to hear what you're doing. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Corey, because he's going to share his screen and we'll get started.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and try to make sure that the sound is on, because I've done that before. All right, and so the video we're going to show, like we mentioned, was first screened at the National Association of Interpretation Conference just a couple months ago. And we've actually have it hosted on YouTube because a couple of people did ask for access to it. So if you want it, you're welcome to. Obviously, we are very excited if anyone wants to share our goofy little video. But we think it's fun and we hope you enjoy. And let me know if you can't hear it. There we go.
Good evening and welcome to the Sensory Spotlight News Report. I'm your host, Corey Keystro-Mills, Exhibits Coordinator at Gumbo Limbo Nature Center. Today we will be asking the hard questions and bringing you the reporting you rely on as we explore the role of the senses in the ever-changing field of environmental interpretation. Coming to you live from Gumbo Limbo Nature Center in Boca Raton, Florida, your source of environmental news and multisensory reporting. This is Sensory Spotlight News Report. We start this morning with our top headlines, the senses. At the most basic level, the senses are the way all living things recognize and interact with the world around them. In humans, we most commonly break these senses into 5 simple categories: sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing. However, there are many other sensory experiences, like equilibrium, the sense of balance and movement, or kinesthetics, the sense of one's own body moving through space. Together, the senses contribute to our understanding and response to the external world. Each of the senses responds to specific stimuli, and the way our bodies react are both unique at the biological level and the individual level. With more on the role of the senses in program development, we now go to our science educator, Christy Collins, who is in the field.
Thanks, Corey. Interpretive programs that pull on a variety of sensory experiences are by nature more accessible, inclusive, and impactful. We know from countless studies that individuals have preferences for learning that prioritizes certain sensory experiences over others. For example, some guests may prefer to be told about the mangrove environment. Others may prefer to see an illustration. while a third may get the most from a knee-deep experience. We also know not all people have the same sensory range, which affect program impact at the personal level. A super sniffer may be able to detect the ingredients in a Cabernet. Toasted blackberry. But the same person could be put off by the strong, unpleasant scent of mangrove muck. Sulfur. A visitor with a visual impairment may benefit more by being handed a propagal rather than a photograph. And many guests, regardless of their hearing, benefit from captions. Developing programs that consider the wide range of sensory experiences offer opportunities for guests with unique sensory preferences and abilities to have productive and well-rounded experiences. Corey, back to you.
Thank you, Christy, for that wonderful reporting. It is always important when developing interpretive programs, media, or exhibitions to consider the audience's needs and their diverse range of sensory preferences and abilities. We interrupt our usually scheduled program to discuss the role COVID-19 has played on environmental interpretation. Gumbo Limbo Nature Center, along with many other community education centers, closed to the public in March 2020. All in-person programs were canceled, and in our specific case, the entire center, including the majority of the grounds, remained closed to the public. Like many of our sister facilities, not only nature centers, but museums and discovery centers, we have had to move all public engagement to a virtual or socially distanced format. These virtual programs by necessity tend to rely overly on audio and visual production and eliminate other avenues of sensory discovery. We needed to adjust our use of sensory engagement to develop inclusive and impactful programming for a hands-off world. Picking up where we left off, let us now turn to our very own Megan Berry with this weekend's Sensory Weather Report. To you, Megan.
Thanks, Corey. We are looking at perfect conditions to hear and smell this weekend. First, let's take a look at our 5-day sensory forecast. To start off, perfect conditions for seeing early week. Look at that, a 20/20 vision forecasted. Our early week touch, though, might be felt with a little high pressure, so prepare to really feel that one. Careful not to burn yourself midweek. Taste is expected to be a bit hot for the region. But look at that, beautiful opportunities to hear and smell to finish off this sensory experience. Now at this moment, sound waves are being heard in the ears, light waves are bouncing into the eyes, and maybe it was a pad thai we had for lunch, but there are some volatile chemicals descending into the nose region. Now, of course, these are some of the body's more obvious senses. When you account for the differences between temperature, pressure, and pain sensors, some scientists have counted over 20 different senses. Out here on the hearing front, sound waves enter through the ear and strike against the eardrum. Now these sound waves are broken up into 3 parts: volume, rhythm, and pitch. Each part of the sound is converted into electrical sparks. These spark travels around south to the back of the head, where they join the brainstem, the superhighway of the nervous system. Here, sounds from the left and right ear collide. Differences in volume help determine the direction of the sound. Then the sparks hit the thalamus. Imagine the traffic circle of the brain. This is where the information from all over the body are directed towards the brain for processing. From the thalamus, the sparks travel to the auditory complex just behind the temples of your head. Here, sounds are organized and identified. From there, many parts of your brain may light up, depending on if you are being spoken to, listening to music, or trying to imagine a scene. The sense of smell, however, takes an interesting shortcut. It starts with chemicals in the air that enter our nasal passage. On the roof of our nasal cavity, we have thousands of neurons. Now, each neuron is designed to respond to one specific chemical smell, and when our olfactory receptors detect that chemical, they shoot an electric spark not to the brainstem superhighway, but directly up to the olfactory bulb at the base of the brain. These neurons have direct access to your brain, so there are no detours here. The olfactory bulb is part of the limbic system. This is where memories and emotions are processed. From there, the sparks travel to the thalamus, the traffic circle of the brain, onto higher level processing and response. This is why I can remember a smell before I know exactly what it is. Your body is designed to respond to potentially dangerous smells instinctively, like spitting out poisonous or spoiled foods. So it is tied to the fight or flight part of the brain. All right, back to you, Corey. We'll smell you later.
Very interesting, Megan. I always remember the smell of sour milk. Ugh, that was a bad oversight before a vacation. On the topic of smells, we now turn to our resident food expert, Marty Raccoon, for an up-close sniff. Oh, thanks, Corey. You know, as a raccoon, I rely less on my eyes, more on my nose and my hands to interact with the world around me, which means I think a lot about stink. You know, some scents are deeply tied to memory, emotions, and age. Adults are more likely to associate a scent with memories of their own, which can be used to lead group discussions or even trigger emotional responses among your participants. Younger individuals, however, are more likely to develop new scent memories with the introduction of a novel scent. I've invited my niece Mitzi here to represent the youth.
Well,
let us start with something new. Are you ready?
yes.
All right. Here. I found it. All right, I think you'll like this one. What does it smell like?
It smells like food. I like food smells. What is it?
This is tomato sauce. It's used in a lot of Italian cooking, which means it's imported. How does the smell make you feel?
Hungry?
To me, it reminds me of Papa Lasagna's, the Italian restaurant that used to be just down the street. The best dumpsters. Anyway, but as a young sniffer, you probably don't have that scent memory. Papa Lasagna's has been closed for years. Well, but maybe in the future, this scent will help remind you of the time you came on TV with me, your favorite uncle, America's favorite raccoon anchor.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, when working with smells, it's always important to consider the age of the individual. What memories might smell bring, and how can you use that to deliver your message? Are you trying to create something new? Are you trying to build on someone else's pre-existing experiences? The fun trick to smells is also the relationship with our emotions.
You mean like how flowers smell happy and skunks smell mean?
Yes, exactly. All right, let's put this to the test. Go ahead and cover your eyes. I have something I want you to sniff, and I want you to tell me what you think it is and how you feel about it. Are you ready?
Sure.
Here's your hand. There you go.
Ew, gross. What is it?
That's for you to answer. What do you think it is?
Well, I don't know. I guess it kind of smells familiar, but I don't like it.
Okay, open your eyes.
Oh, it's a snail. Yum.
Yum.
I love snails. Why did it smell so gross before?
Well, you see, we rely on all of our senses together. By limiting what you can see or being in an unfamiliar environment, even something familiar can be off-putting if you can't tell what it is. Context helps shed light on positive experiences, while lack of context can make an experience somewhat unsettling or even exciting. Both are important tools when designing a program.
Whoa, I just realized that I like the smell of the tomato sauce, but not the snail. And even though I eat snails all the time, that's so weird.
The brain can do some funny things. So in recap, all the senses, but particularly smell, are linked to memory and emotions, and depending on how old one is, or the experience, how the experience is contextualized, you can help guide those memories and emotions in your programs. That's all for us, Corey. Back to you. Thank you, Marty and young Mitzi, for that interesting and somewhat unsettling dive into the world of smells. Of course, with social distancing, facial covering, and other post-COVID changes to program design, scent and focused breathing as an interpretive tool is under threat. However, now more than ever, we are aware of the importance and disparity that comes along with access to open spaces and clean air. We need to consider how important mindful breathing, safe access to fresh air, and even the odd smelly surprise has become to the average visitor. Next, let us tune into the world of sound. As we have transitioned to distance learning and virtual platforms, it has become more important than ever to consider the scope, challenges, and advantages of this new limited contact format. To bring this discussion into key, I would like to introduce our next guest, an expert in all things auditory, Margot Mockingbird. Welcome, and thank you for joining us, Margot.
Good morning, good morning.
Tell us, Margot, what should we know when it comes to using sounds in programs?
Well, first of all, Corey, please excuse the nest. I haven't had time to tidy it up. But back to your point. All sounds break down to the basic elements of volume, pitch, and rhythm. Each has its uses, but my favorite, of course, is rhythm. We use rhythms to memorize long strings of information, like the lyrics to our favorite songs. Let it go, let it go. Rhythms also maintain focus, developing a consistent pace with regular short sentences. And an easy cadence can also help audiences stay focused. Oh, and a mnemonic. I love a good mnemonic. This is when we use keywords and rhythm to encode information. For example, a favorite bird, besides the mockingbird. Like, say, a cardinal. What cheer, what cheer? We can recall her song by adding some clever words. What cheer, what cheer? This can help us to identify the bird call even if we haven't seen or heard her for ourselves.
Ah, yes, I have one of those for the barred owl. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?
Precisely. If you want to help someone remember information, don't be afraid to use melody, rhymes, or music. This will all contribute to a robust sensory experience.
Wonderful. Thank you, Margot.
Thank you.
Not only do sounds offer unique ways to engage with an audience, it is important to recognize the value of descriptive language. We know our audiences come to us with a variety of sensory strengths, weaknesses, and preferences. It is important to remember the power of imagination. Our brains will use whatever information is presented and contextualize it in a way that makes sense to our own unique experiences and preferences. As interpreters, we can help by digging into our descriptive lexicon. Use sensory terms to describe what people cannot see through a screen. How does it feel, smell, sound? Provide your audience with the sensory cues they are missing. Alternatively, consider ways to equip your audience to go out into the field and have a socially distanced but meaningful sensory experience for their own. For a closer look, let's join our nature correspondent in the field, Christy.
Thanks, Corey. I'm in the wild where I have spotted a Homo sapien exhibiting interesting behavior. Common name human appears to be meditating, taking deep breaths, practicing mindfulness on the Nature Center's boardwalk. By focusing on her senses, she will develop a more complex memory trace that can be used to recall this experience in the future. As an adult human, we can assume she brings with her a complex array of memories and emotions that will be triggered through focused sensory experience. This type of mindfulness program may be best presented by asking visitors to relate personal life experiences to the current context.
Christy?
Oh, shoot.
Is that you?
She spotted us. Let's
Why are
go.
you filling my mindfulness book?
It appears we have lost our connection with Christy. Hope she hasn't created any unpleasant experiences for herself. Can someone please go call legal? To recap, senses are the foundation of our experiences in the world. Each has unique attributes and qualities that can be used by interpreters to make it more inclusive, robust programs, media, and exhibits. The sense of smell has a strong and direct link to both emotions and memory. These links are developed over time, meaning older audiences will bring their own personal experiences to the fore, while younger audiences are more likely to develop new scent-based memories. Further, audience response to scents in programs is highly dependent on context. By introducing or explaining a scent, generally it becomes more pleasant, while even a familiar scent can be unpleasant when taken out of context. The relationship between pleasantness and unpleasantness builds into the overall emotional context of the experience. Tuning back to the audio portion of our presentation, sounds at their most basic level are composed of volume, pitch, and rhythm. Each of these elements should be considered when developing programming that uses audio. Developing rhythm and cadence in a presentation, or the inclusion of musical elements, helps maintain focus. By incorporating mnemonic devices, complex information can be encoded for easier recall in the future. Do you remember the call of the barred owl? Finally, in an increasingly hands-off world, we need to consider how to best equip our audiences to have these robust multisensory experiences, be it providing them with the tools to explore the world at a social distance, or by providing thick description of the experience and drawing on the audience's imagination. And that brings us to the end of today's presentation. Thank you for joining us this evening. It has been a pleasure.
Let's taste this beet juice. Warm beet juice.
For the record, it never gets easier to watch yourself. Oh no, it's going again.
All right. So we're gonna do our activity now, which is the fun part, the happy hour. So Corey and I will be doing our own versions just because we have our own favorite ingredients. So who brought ingredients? All right, okay, great. All right, so what we're gonna start with, we wanted to pick ingredients that will appeal to our senses. And so using the sense of touch, so does anybody have some fresh mint? All right. And if you don't have a mint, so I'm going to put it up to the camera so you guys can smell it. So you can smell it, can't you? Does anybody want to share what does the smell remind you of? So you guys can unmute yourselves. We're gonna
Christmas.
Christmas. Okay.
Kentucky Derby.
Oh, Kentucky, yeah.
It reminds me of the first time, well, it was an aunt a long time ago when I was a kid who put a sprig of mint on a glass of iced tea, and I'll never forget that. That was my first experience with mint.
Okay, very nice. So it's just one of those things that it can conjure up strong memories. And so appealing to your visitors' senses, especially your older visitors who associate different smells with memories, can really deepen their experience. And then what about the texture of a mint leaf? And depending, you know, there are some different mint leaves. Some of them are a little fuzzy.
With my little leaf. I can't tell how well you can see that.
Very bumpy, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Bumpy.
Toothed margins. So, and then what about the taste?
Refreshing.
Refreshing. I was going to ask, does anyone have any descriptive words that they would use to describe
Peppery.
the flavors of mint?
Mine was peppery.
Peppery. Usually a little cooling.
Yeah, for me, mint actually holds a very special memory because my grandfather had it in his garden, and so as a little girl, I would go out to his garden, and I just thought it was the neatest thing that we were just picking stuff outside in the backyard and putting it in our mouths whenever, you know, you're kids and you're always having, you know, adults tell you, don't put that in your mouth.
Don't put that in your mouth. Yeah.
Yes. So it actually, for me, it actually does conjure up a lot of very strong memories and emotions. So never underestimate what a smell or taste or any of the senses can bring to your visitors. Okay, so I'm gonna put.
Oh, we forgot one.
Oh, go for it, Corey.
Right? So I would say listen to your mint, but it's very quiet. So alternatively, just fun, when you are doing some sort of a mixology class, I remember this one as being a favorite of mine, but whenever you have herbs, you want to give, oh, where's my camera? Yeah. You want to make sure you give your herbs a round of applause. So if you guys have your mint with you, go ahead. Yay, mint!
It sounds fresh.
And that helps break up the oils and it gets really potent.
Yeah. Okay. So our lovely. All right. So next, I have some cucumber. If anybody, does anybody have cucumber? All right.
Ooh.
So I'm just going to, what about cucumber? What kind of memories does this conjure for you?
Clean and fresh.
Fresh?
Yes. And clean. It has a real clean smell.
It does. And I think that's really worth pointing out that, so, I mean, those are really good kind of intangible concepts that you can bring into the discussion. So, you know, the idea of cleanliness, the idea of freshness, things that you can kind of lead into other discussions or try to associate back to your overall experience. So what are we trying to achieve here? You know, we're trying to make something that people enjoy, hopefully, drinking, but.
So I'm going to dice that up. And then what about any other, so clean, I know I always, I love whenever I have gatherings, I like putting slices in a jug of cold water, and I call it my spa water. So, you know, whenever my guests come in, I'm like, would you like some spa water? So just a little extra, like, so I kind of associate cucumbers with relaxation. And but I don't put them over my eyes. I don't understand that, so.
Cold and wet.
Yeah, cold and wet, yes. So, okay, and then we're gonna save our lime for a garnish. So that's kind of the last more solid ingredient that we're gonna be using. What do you think of whenever you smell, well, first off, whenever you touch the lime?
Oh.
Or just, well, maybe instead of, okay, I was gonna say maybe instead of trying to talk about memories, because maybe you don't have a memory, so then maybe we can transition over to, does anyone just want to describe the texture of the lime?
It's kind of bumpy, isn't it? It's kind of bumpy all over.
Yeah, it has a very fine texture, almost a waxy sort of a feel to it.
Round.
It's round, usually pretty firm. One of my favorite things to do is when you're trying to like juice a lemon, you roll it between your hands first.
Mm-hmm.
You get that little reflexology moment where it's between your palms. It's nice.
And so how would you, with those, so a lot of those were the tangible words. So then, you know, how do you change that? How do you switch from your tangibles to your intangibles? So like those bumpy, like how can you relate that to something that kids would know? I mean, maybe some kids like limes, some kids don't though. Or you can talk about whenever, you know, they get squirted in the face with it. So, all right, so that's gonna go there. Okay, so, what about the colors? Oh, somebody said limes remind me of my mom. She always orders water with a wedge of lime. Very nice. Okay, and so also somebody mentioned earlier that it's springtime. What about the colors? We've got a lot of, like visually, what does this do for you guys? Rin, you're muted.
It reminds me of spring. It's got all these different shades of green in it.
Yes, and so then what about when we add some nice, so I go all out and I have my Mr. Q cucumber sparkling water, but you can use just tonic or sparkling water. So what about when we put something bubbly in there?
Tickles your nose.
Tickles your nose. That's definitely something that kids can relate to.
Fun sounds.
And the sound, yeah. And then just for the grown-ups, I had a couple of options. I couldn't decide which one I wanted to, but I'm gonna try my cucumber mint, but I also have some cucumber lime that we'll add in. I'm doing the cucumber mint.
Oh man.
What is that, Christy?
This is the Kettle One Botanical, and so it's healthy because it doesn't have any sugar in it. So just, you know. But it's, yeah, the cucumber mint. So no artificial sweeteners or flavors. So we mix that all together, and all of our senses are being utilized there. So our sense of sight, touch, taste, smell, and sound.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that some of those ingredients conjured some memories for us, some emotion. And so we just, whenever you're doing your programs, you want to think about those things. That's how we reach our audience members. That's how we do our interpretive programs. We want to connect with our visitors and connect them to our resource that that they've come to see or hear about. Okay, so we've got, I think that we've got, Corey, did you want to add anything else to that before we go into the breakout rooms?
No, I think you did awesome. I mean, just bringing it back. So, I mean, we are all adults in this class, so it really gives you a great opportunity to pull on what are your memories, what do you have associated with that, and that's, like we mentioned before, the older you are, the more scent memories you've developed, but that's also something you can associate with the popularity of a scent. So when you're talking about something like mint, children have memories associated with mint. They've probably had that experience. But if you're talking about, I mean, I would even say like cucumber, maybe they don't, maybe they do. And so it's always kind of fun to start those conversations and say, you know, what does this remind you of, or, you know, and have those kind of like connecting moments.
All right, so I think we could probably do, just do 2 breakout rooms, and Corey will be in one breakout room, I'll be in the other, and we're just gonna kind of really just kind of discuss and brainstorm some ideas, or, you know, share what we've done for programs to just help to connect to our visitors. So Christine's gonna actually just put us randomly into 2 different breakout rooms. So we hope that you will stay and join us, because we're gonna, after the breakout room, we're gonna come back and share and just wrap up with any questions or discussion that we will have, so.
Okay. Let's see if this works.
So how's everybody's drink?
So refreshing.
Oh, Christine, I'm sorry. Mine's pretty darn good.
Mine's getting stronger. Not the alcohol, though, it's just the flavors.
Okay. I was like, oh, okay.
That works too.
I didn't have cucumber, so I substituted ginger, and so it's much more of a wintry thing than spring.
That's still, I love ginger though. That's still refreshing. So.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go make bitter lemon, gin, and lime.
Nice. Christine, you're that close. You're so close to getting there.
Still gotta get home.
All right, so does anybody want to share from just across our 2 different rooms? We had some pretty good conversation about different senses and different programs.
I mean, I can share the notes from our room. But yeah, we were talking about particularly use of sensory gardens and different plants that were on site. Ren had a very cute program that she has run in the past where she has candies and then has kids try to associate where that candy can be found. So if you have a little peppermint, have them find the mint or the licorice. So I thought that was excellent.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that idea. Well, we were lucky, and I know it's not Phil. You told us the other day what your, oh, maybe is it Phyllis? Yes, it's Phyllis. So Phyllis actually brought her bread out, her bread finished while we were in our room. So, and she put it up to the camera for us so we could all smell it.
Love it.
Which evoked a memory of me from childhood of a bakery outside of our church and the smell of bread that we got when we left church. And actually the bakery's gone, and my sister and I were driving through that neighborhood a few years ago, and we could still smell the bread. It was in our memory, but it was so vivid. And so it came full circle.
Can you, Corey or Christy, can you speak again a little bit more about the process of taking your captioning? You were talking about you import it into YouTube. YouTube gives you the captions, and then you can take it back out and then fix it or correct or add words that you missed or whatever. Can you speak a little bit more to that, please?
Yeah, so I definitely made it harder on myself than I probably needed to. So that was the process I went through. I'm not going to recommend everyone do that. So YouTube has auto captioning. It is very good. It is not perfect by any means, but if you upload a video to YouTube, I would say give it 5 to 10 minutes and go back. It will have auto-generated captions for you. And then depending on your familiarity using YouTube, when you actually go into your videos, there's a whole captions section, and you can edit your captions in the YouTube video itself. So it will actually play the video, you can hear what you're saying, you can see the captions, and you can go in and fix it. I can tell you that the auto caption, for some unknown reason, uses no capital letters. It is all lowercase, including things that it recognizes as names or the word I. Still, it drives me nuts. And then more understandably, there's no punctuation, because I get that they're not going to guess what your punctuation is. But you can go in and edit your captions in the video, and that will be an open caption system where people can turn their captions on and off if they're watching your videos on YouTube. And then for the purposes of our video, I wanted to embed the captions specifically because we reference the importance of having captions in your videos. And so whenever we make videos, we always do closed captions, which means the captions are actually burnt into the video, so they're always on. You don't have the option of turning them on or off. And so I tried to make my life easier by just importing it to YouTube, exporting the captions, which, that was part of the story here, is you can export from YouTube a text file of your captions, and then I tried to copy and paste that into the video. I should have just transcribed it. It's, it would have been a little bit of a challenge, but it would have taken just as long as the thing I did. So a lot of video editing software do have, well, I don't actually want to say that a lot of them do. I do know that there are some video software that have auto caption generation. At least they'll create the text boxes where you can write into. Not all of them have the auto generation where they actually take your sounds and convert them into text. But if you just need to make captions, YouTube is a very efficient way to do that. Facebook used to be, and to be fair, I'm not very good at social media. So it has changed, and I never bothered to learn how to fix it because I knew how YouTube worked. So I just went to YouTube instead.
Yeah, it is. I agree. It's easier to edit your captions in YouTube than it is on Facebook. Like half the time the caption editing for Facebook works and half the time it doesn't. So it's just easier. So I usually, it's a really long drawn out process to do it that way, like downloading the text and uploading it here and there. But never underestimate the usefulness of YouTube videos when it comes to instructions on how to go do these processes. Because a lot of times we're Googling, okay, how do I do this? And doing step by step. So that's, I mean, you know, we've had a year to learn all this stuff. So it wasn't easy for us super creative types, you know, to get all technical, but you know, we kind of had to, so.
Yeah. And then, yeah, to answer Brent's question, I'm more than happy to always try to answer. And then just a great resource for anyone who doesn't already know it. It has recently been bought out. It used to be called lynda.com. It has now been bought by LinkedIn. So now they're calling it LinkedIn Learning. So if you have a LinkedIn account, you might have gotten a notice that you have a free month subscription to LinkedIn Learning. If you just sign up, they'll give you 1 free month. And then I actually can have a account through my local library. So my library has an account, but it is a great online school, basically, where they have whole lesson plans, including homework assignments, and it's for any range of topics, but a lot of it is tech and software based. So if you're using a specific software, and you can check their supply before you sign up for an account. Just go in, look up the software, and you can see all the different lessons that have been created. And so when we started doing video editing, I took an 8-hour crash course on how to use the video editing software that we had, and then I just made it up from there. But it was extremely helpful. Oh, yeah, perfect. LinkedIn Learning. I would highly recommend though. All right. So do we have any other questions? I think we're at the end of our time.
We are just about at the end. I want to remind everybody that this was recorded. This will go up on YouTube in a day or so. So if there was something really stimulating in the main conversation here that you want to come back and reference, you'll be able to do that. And again, if you do need research credits or proof of attendance, my email is up in the chat, or you can find me on the blog. And do we have any other questions in the probably minute and a half we have left? No? Okay, well, thanks everybody for being here. Thank you to Corey and Christy for a fantastic session.
Thank you.
I loved that video.
Really
That was
good.
the best video
Really
I've seen in a
good.
while. I'm gonna remember those raccoons.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see
Thank you,
guys tomorrow.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Okay. Great
All
job,
right.
guys.
That's it. We're done.
Okay.
I just
Alright.
got one more session to host tomorrow. So
One more, then we're done. All
Okay.
right. Have a good
Bye.
evening, guys.
good night.